right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Welcome to the Paranormal Peeps podcast. We got all the foul language out of our mouths, and we think we've got it out. Maybe.
Nope.
No, we're good kids. We'll be nice. Running around the room, to my left, the chair that is usually occupied by the lovely Elisa is housing my backpack, which is just occupying the space because Elisa
got turned into his backpack.
Yes, we put her in the backpack. Sorry, her husband's gonna be like, "What the heck happened to my wife?" we carved her anyway.
She's
Elisa,
not here.
Elisa, when you listen to this, we really missed you, but we're gonna have fun anyway. So going back, so we have Elisa is not here, but who is here, which is even better. We have the magical and mystical
Josh.
He's the wizard
of Oz. The wonderful wizard.
He's sheetless right now, though. There's no sheet. You know,
that's because I got scared sheetless.
You know, Wizard of Oz, he's behind the sheet.
He's behind the, yeah.
So he's the wizard, but without a sheet. So I know what he looks like. But next to Josh
is Jamie.
The lovely Jamie. And then
Terry, I'm here.
Terry, she's my wife. So just have to tell you guys, Jamie is so Josh is like the wizard. He's the one that does all of the cool editing, and he's the one that posts the show, and he's the one that produces all this. So this is all like his project. He's the master that brings you this. And so if you don't like how it sounds,
blame him.
You can email Josh at paranormalhope.com. But no, he does a fantastic job, and I wouldn't even know how to do half of the things that he does. So a little silent applause, golf clap for Josh.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
And then I have to throw this out. So every time we come here, Josh and Jamie have our little studio set up in the basement. But Jamie feeds us every time we come, and she doesn't half-ass anything. It's good. There was so many like Halloween themed like treats and stuff tonight. I don't know.
We're gonna have to post pictures of all
my
this
gosh.
because like
pictures
we had a throwing up pumpkin, we had a green brain, we had
hand pies.
The deviled eggs were like dragon eggs.
We had and then we had there was so much. Jamie did a really good job.
And my favorite was the Fruity Pebbles Rice Krispie treats. Oh my gosh.
Not Halloween themed at all.
No.
Not even Halloween colored.
Not even Halloween
She even
themed.
homemade like tortilla chips in the shapes of like cauldrons and witches' hats and brooms and pumpkins and
Oh, the books.
they were so good.
The s'mores that.
Oh, there was the books with from Hocus Pocus.
Yeah, it was like a square marshmallow and a graham cracker all dipped in chocolate, and then it looks like the book.
Yep, from Hocus Pocus.
Anyway,
such fun.
Fantastic stuff. And so
now we're full and
slightly
high on
hyper.
sugar.
And it's gonna
Like always.
it's going to get worse.
It's Jamie's goal every time.
It's been a success.
So if I seem hyper, it's Jamie's fault.
That's okay. We'll keep her.
We'll keep her.
As long as she keeps feeding us.
Yeah, well,
My pleasure, really.
Even if she didn't feed us, we would still come. So, anyway, well, we're here. We're going to talk about some scary stuff this time. Because it's a paranormal podcast, and we should talk about scary things.
And it's October, so it's like our month-long Christmas.
I mean, we could talk about scary stuff like not being able to find your other shoe when you're late.
Or losing your dowsing rods at Benson Grist Mill.
What?
He did.
Yeah.
I didn't know this.
I didn't know this.
They're
His
gone.
light up ones.
What?
They're gone.
Somebody found them and
Yeah.
just.
Are you serious?
I'm dead serious.
This last time?
Yeah.
Dude, that bites.
I know.
Do you know where you left them?
Either the amphitheater or the big mill, and they haven't found them.
Okay, so yeah, sorry, that's a bummer. So if you did if you've been to Benson Grist Mill, you did find Josh's rods, please let us know. Please give them back to him because they have special sentiment. They were given to him by
his wife.
So, but that sucks. So anyway, well, tonight we are going to talk about because it's October, it's Spooktober. We thought we'd talk about some spookier stuff, not just Halloween, not just smashing pumpkins, not just tricks and treats. We're going to talk about castles. And you're like, wait, what? Castles aren't scary. Well,
Yeah, they are.
Castles are totally creepy.
Like every horror movie out there has got some kind of like creepy castle. Or
Okay.
creepy
Who would
building.
not investigate a castle in Scotland when he was there?
She's pointing at me when we were in Scotland. Like we told this
We've
story
told the story
before.
several times, and I hold it over your head. I will hold it over your head the rest of your life.
Never let me forget it.
Castles are scary.
Because I was scared of ghosts at the time. It was creepy enough being in the castle.
It was a very creepy
anyway,
castle. It was a very, very creepy
and then,
castle.
And then you want to go back at night
Yep.
in the pitch black dark. For a ghost
Absolutely.
hunt? Now I'm like, hell yeah.
Like let's do it.
Then
When you're walking through in the daytime and they have an object that the sign in front of it that says trigger object do not touch, you want to go back and see what that trigger
I
object
wanted to go
is
to the
for.
next room
Right?
as fast as I could.
But I do agree with Mike. At the time that he went there, I was still scared of ghosts as well, and I'd have been like,
It's a transformation period. I mean, fear is a good thing, right?
It's what keeps us safe.
So it keeps us safe. Now I'm an idiot. Just run headlong. It's like, what? There's a ghost? Hey, we're there.
So we just got to go back now.
Yes. If anybody would like to fund our Scotland trip, go to Patreon. We aren't one of those. We're not one of those podcasts.
We're not that.
No, tonight we're going to talk about. Let's talk about Dracula's castle. We were just watching Fright Night last night, and didn't even finish it. We all fell asleep at our house. But you guys see the movie Fright Night?
Nope.
Roddy
No.
McDowell? No. Basic story is the kid is there and he watches all these horror movies, all these Dracula movies and stuff, and then he notices that there's a coffin being moved into the basement of the house next door, and then women show up in taxi cabs, and then
All these stories of these women being killed,
all these women disappear,
and he finds out his next door
he
neighbor.
sees them loading bodies into
is
the
a
back of
vampire.
the car. Yeah, so the next door neighbor's a vampire.
Oh,
Yeah, played by Chris
fun.
Sarandon, Prince Humperdinck
Is the vampire.
from Princess Bride. Yeah, he's the vampire.
He is the vampire.
Right on.
So sorry, I went off on a big tangent on that one. All right, so let's talk about Dracula's castle, Josh.
yes.
Which one?
I don't know.
Well, that's the crazy part, right? Because there's actually multiple.
Well, if you go and you Google Dracula's castle, there's one that always pops up as
Yes.
Dracula's castle.
Yeah.
Yes.
First one that pops up when you Google it. Where is that one located, Terry?
Romania.
No. Nope. The first one that pops up, Farmington, Utah.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Actually, that's not what I got when I searched
When
it.
you first Google it, the Dracula's castle in Farmington, Utah pops up at Lagoon.
The first one that popped on the top, what I thought was hilarious.
Oh, Josh is going to Google it right now.
Maybe it's the filters at work.
Maybe, I don't know.
But yeah, the first one that popped up was Dracula's castle.
Just type in Dracula's castle. Yep, right there, Lagoon.
Oh,
on
you're
the
there.
right.
Look on the right.
Look on the right.
Oh. I don't ever look at Google Maps.
Oh, I look at the pictures. I have a
Dracula's castle at Lagoon.
So, for those of you who are not in Utah, we have an amusement park here. It's kind of like Disneyland, but about. Well, it's
Oh,
almost
you can't even compare this
No,
to
no, no.
Disneyland.
It's more like Six Flags. If
No,
Six Flags
it's more-
was really
No, it's
bad.
more like Knott's Berry Farm. It's even lower than Knott's Berry
Oh,
Farm.
it's not. I was gonna say it's like Disneyland, but about an eighth the size.
Not as fun.
Size-wise, it's not that far off, but it just isn't as.
cool.
It's not the same
Magical.
epic level. It's not magical. It's not near as expensive. It's only like what, $70 to
It's
get in?
like about $75 to get in.
Yeah. So do you know for like $35 more, you can go to Disneyland?
No, but then I have to drive like 600 miles.
9 hours.
Nine and a half hours from
Yeah.
Yeah,
here. But
Worth it.
yeah, it's worth it.
Is it?
I love it.
Absolutely.
I love it.
It's in California though. I don't know.
It's the only reason why I go to California.
That would be the only reason to go to
That-
California.
Yep.
That and the Winchester
That
Mystery
and-
House
and Alcatraz.
and Alcatraz
And Queen
and
Mary.
Queen Mary. and-
Well, now that we're all ghosty people though, but back before I was ghosty, it was just Disneyland.
Yep.
yeah,
So, but yeah,
Same here.
Dracula's castle is the first one that comes up when you Google it.
Yeah,
That's
so
funny.
that's interesting.
But yeah,
And
it's-
because I always looked on the left, I never even looked on the right at the Google Maps.
Well,
thing.
that's for outside of Utah. I'm pretty sure it doesn't come up that fast
I wonder
because
if it's-
probably not.
it's, it's a Utah thing.
Yeah.
and Google does take all that into effect, stuff near you. So I don't know. If you've never seen it, never been there, you get in these little cars, and it's like a little haunted attraction that goes on a track. The little car you get in looks like a Pontiac Fiero from the 80s. Mm-hmm. And then you go around and last time I was there, it was like really, really worn down.
Oh no, it's
and
awful. But we're not talking about that Dracula's
I
castle.
don't know. That one used to scare me when I was a kid. It could be scary.
Could be scary now because you're worried if it's going to break.
The animatronic stuff,
it's
like
worn out.
the horse
Yeah.
that doesn't have skin on it anymore because it's all just
Worn
in
out.
need of an update. But no, so the one that is most commonly attributed to Dracula, Josh, which one's that one?
That is
not
the-
Lagoon.
No, that is the one that's in Romania, in Transylvania.
Transylvania. So I used to think Transylvania was a different country. It's not. It's Romania, but it's like a state within Romania.
Yeah,
It's an area.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, Transylvania's been like it's. I don't know, forever. Any horror movie out, like even cheesy ones, like they usually take place in Transylvania. Like even Bugs Bunny and had time in Transylvania.
Haven't seen that one either.
Yeah, that was a
But no, you're right. It's like every episode of whatever. Everything is scary. It's like we go to Transylvania.
Yeah, and it's all because of one man, really, like Brom Stoker when he wrote his famous Dracula book,
Yeah,
and that's why we know it.
I never
at
read,
all.
never read the book, but I did see Bram Stoker's Dracula, the movie
I have
with Gary Oldman.
I have never read the book,
Really?
and I haven't seen the movie.
You haven't seen the?
I haven't either.
Oh my gosh!
I don't know why this doesn't surprise you. We have all learned Josh does not watch movies.
I'm all about movies because I never learned how to read, and so I have to watch the movies. And so in Bram Stoker, it's because Gary Oldman as Dracula. So it's good stuff. It's a great show. And then there's the Interview with the Vampire, which I think is also Transylvania,
I haven't seen that one either.
with a very
I have seen that one.
with a very sexy Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt.
I don't like
vampires.
Tom Cruise.
Really?
Things you learn about your paranormal investigator friends.
It's because you have you seen Rock of Ages?
Yeah.
Well, no, we love Rock of Ages mainly because of the music.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, him and Stacey Jacks.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah, he did really well in there. I'm not saying I don't like him as an actor. It's just, growing up, all my friends used to think he was cute and have posters on the walls.
Because of Top Gun.
I wasn't one of those.
Yeah,
I did find him
Yeah.
attractive.
Yeah. You can just go,
Taps.
completely childish and go Hotel Transylvania.
Oh, that's true.
That's where I would go.
Yeah.
I'm going back to my childhood, and I'm going.
Don't know if I'm going to see the fourth one, but the first three were good.
I'm going to the commercials for Count Chocula.
Yeah, but was he really in Transylvania or somewhere else?
Okay, well then fine. Then we'll go with my favorite vampire, the mathematician, the Count, in
Sesame
Transylvania, and
Oh,
he
that's
was
true.
in Transylvania.
That's true.
You know how many castles they were a trip. So talk about there was multiple castles. How many castles were there?
At least 5.
Let's see. One castle for Dracula. Two Dracula's castles. I'm sorry. I told you, Jamie gave us sugar, and my mind is like all over the place.
He just wants more sugar.
But
That's why he
running
wants
at
Count
like
Chocula.
I'm like a
100
kid with
RPMs.
ADD on sugar.
But the castle that is credited as being Dracula's castle, right?
Yeah, right. The one that describes in the book,
That's
all that.
that it's described in the book, yeah, is in Transylvania. It's Bron Castle, or
In Romania.
in Romania,
Castelnudelbrunn.
and they do it up. They've decked out the place. They just the whole town near it. They do the whole vampire thing. They love it.
Oh, they've totally turned it into a total tourist trap because of the book.
Yeah.
100%. They eat it up like crazy.
All right, so tell us more about
Bron Castle.
or we'll go at German Schlossbrunn.
Yeah, so the castle was actually it's actually quite ancient. Before the castle we see today was built, back in 1211. Wow, that is like a long time ago, right? The Teutonic Knights, they're a Catholic religious order formed in Palestine during the late 12th century. They were like German crusaders. They were gifted this land where the Bron Castle is, and it was there to actually defend the border, the southern border of the area. So they erected a fortress there, and so that they could protect the area. It wasn't like It's not what we see today. That fortress doesn't exist anymore.
No, now it's a lovely museum that houses art and furniture that was collected by Queen Marie, and
Yep.
you can go do your own guided tour, or I think you can get guided tours. But
Yeah, and it's €7 to do a guided tour of the castle. So, but even the castle we see today, right, the one that you can go in there now, isn't what was occupied or what was originally built either.
no. Well, the original one it was in 2000, not 2000. Is in 1212.
No, that one's gone.
Yeah, I said the original one.
Yeah.
The wooden. It was the Utah with the Teutonic Order.
Yeah.
And it was destroyed by the Mongols in 1242.
So the one that we see today, or at least part of what we see today, was actually built in 1388.
Which is still so
Which is
old.
it's not that old. I mean, you know.
600, 700, or not 700. Oh, gosh.
I think us Americans have a really hard time wrapping our brain around stuff that's that old.
Because our country's only
Because our country is not that
250
old.
years-
No.
We don't have stuff that old in our country.
No, we're only 200 and some years old. So anything in our country that is 600 years old is
From somewhere else.
somewhere else or Native American, right? And so, and even then, most of that stuff isn't that old. So, yeah, it's so hard to wrap our mind around those pieces. But
yeah.
so
What date did you have for the next one was being built?
the date for it being built,
Yeah.
1388. Is when,
Okay.
when it was completed. I was going to say though that it took 11 years to complete.
Yeah, so it's 1377.
Yeah, so
I
13.
love it.
Yeah,
I found facts.
facts. So the Hungarian King Louis the Great, he actually issued a decree to build the castle, and it took 11 years to put this thing together, which is amazing because like you're talking about tools and stuff that were used to build in the
That's
1300s.
hard manual labor.
Yeah.
No,
It does not
yeah.
exist these days.
No.
Only 11 years.
No,
So-
and what's really cool is I don't have any pictures of the castle, but there's these beautiful Byzantine arches in the inside the castle grounds, and the master craftsmen when they were in charge of building these arches, and so what they do is they put up these scaffolding to form in the archways, and then him and his apprentices would stack everything up and build these arches. But in order to remove all of the scaffolding and make sure it stood proper, the master craftsman would stand in the middle of the arch as they removed the scaffolding. So if you had bad workmanship, you were going to be crushed.
Sucks to be you.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Was he standing under it or on top of it?
No, under it.
Under it.
So-
So he's standing under the keystone.
Under the keystone.
Okay.
And so if they did bad work, he was going to get crushed to death. So talk about, really to talk about
That's
standing by your work.
Just trusting your crew.
Right? Yeah. It's crazy. But it's really, you talk about like that type of craftsmanship. You're talking about 1388. That building still stands today.
Yeah. Things are built to last.
Yeah. And those things were built. Most of the original structure is still standing today. Like there's been some refurb and stuff that's happened, but like those wooden archways, not wooden, good gracious, the stone archways and the stone walls and stuff have stood.
And it's been used for lots of things too. So, like in 1438, if I'm jumping too far ahead, you tell me.
No, you're fine.
From 1438 to 1442, granted, this is just a few years ago, but the castle was used in defense against the Ottoman Empire, which I have no idea what the Ottoman Empire is, honestly. Furniture people.
There's a bunch of footstools.
Yes.
No, they were the Ottoman Empire was the main ruling force in the 1400s. So it would have been they controlled like all of Turkey, a lot of parts of Europe, parts of Russia. Like they had a pretty extensive empire.
It's just impressive how far people go. Like the Mongols, turn on the first one. That's from Mongolia.
Yeah.
It's the other side of like the whole landmass. That's crazy. Sorry, I'm fascinated and hyper. And then later, after was a defense against the Ottoman Empire. My notes tell me that it was a customs post on the mountain pass between Transylvania and Wallachia.
That's actually Wallachia. So in Romanian, W's are V's.
I'm gonna do it. Wallachia.
There you go.
It doesn't sound more like Latin to me when I say it. That's just like my Scottish goes to Australian real fast, and then Cockney, and then turns to Hispanic.
So just not very good.
It's terrible. I can't even do a Utah accent. Anyway, but Wallachia, maybe? Wallachia was also, we know one of the main people from Wallachia. The Prince of Wallachia was a man named Vlad Dracula. And he was pretty cool.
No, he
He was
wasn't.
pretty
The people loved him.
well.
If cool is in your name,
Dracul. But
that means the cool. It's like,
Yes.
I'm Vlad the Cool, yeah!
But he was actually, so if we're talking about Vlad Tepes, who's also known as Vlad the Impaler, he's actually the third Vlad.
Well, yeah.
So his dad was actually Vlad Dracul.
So he just borrowed
And-
it. Oh, so his dad was cool.
Well,
My son is not nearly as cool as I am. I'm sorry.
here's what's interesting though, is Dracul in the language actually means the devil. So Vlad the Impaler is actually the son of the devil.
That was cool.
It's like silence.
I'm trying to not be disruptive. I'm
So,
sorry.
but the thing is though, Vlad never actually lived in the castle. He visited the castle on a couple different occasions, but he never actually really lived in the castle. It wasn't his permanent home.
It was like where he came and did book tours and signed autographs and
Actually, where he ran from the Turks.
blessed the people that were there with sticks and
Sharp sticks.
sharp sticks and
Sharp, pointy sticks.
But it is Vlad's reign, Vlad's time, right? That Brom Stoker got the name for Dracula, or he's the one that he based Dracula off of.
so it makes me wonder
supposedly.
So it makes me wonder if Bram Stoker really, what's the word, villainified, like a good person. Maybe Vlad wasn't near as bad, but just you get the right author, and it just makes him look like a total turd.
No, I think history
Like
proves that he was a total turd.
Macbeth, right? Macbeth was actually an ancestor of mine. His name was Macbide of McFinlay, but he was actually a good king. But then that Shakespeare guy comes up, from England, Will Shakespeare, Bill, and Bill made him look like a dork. So maybe Bram Stoker, just playing devil's advocate, Dracula's advocate.
Dracula's African. The problem is that Vlad. So when Vlad came to power, he ended up needing a way to unite the country, and when he took the throne, essentially when he succeeded from his father, the country was actually run by a bunch of princes, and the princes didn't. They're the ones that were used to being in power, so they didn't really much care for someone coming up to challenge their reign. So what Vlad did was he invited them all to his castle and then killed them all.
Yep. He invited him over for a
Party.
feast.
It was a red wedding.
Yeah. Yeah. A la Carrie style. And then he impaled all of them.
Yes.
And that was part of the reason why he's called the Impaler. But that's how
it was his preferred method of killing.
Yes. Which in lots of ways is quick and I won't say painless, but it was
No.
quick.
Well,
you take a sharpened stick and you shove it into somebody, they die within minutes.
Right.
Depends on where you
So
shove it.
Depends on which
which
hole.
end?
That's true.
So the sharp end was a quick death,
Minutes, yeah.
minutes. But you flip that around and you got the rounded end, and they'd lube it up, and then they spread your legs apart, and then they'd insert it, and it'd take you a day or two.
You sit on it.
Yep.
Yeah,
Sit and spin.
That's right. So
that is awful.
that is
That's-
awful.
Then that is
horrible.
brutal.
I mean, who thinks of this stuff? Come on.
Well, obviously
Seriously.
Vlad did.
Obviously, but come on.
People that are really messed in the head.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's, I mean, and that like those things are bad enough, but the part that is like is crazy.
It's like someone from the never mind.
Mike's lost it.
Captain's log. Captain's got a bigger one.
What were you saying, Josh? Continue with your thought.
Do you want me to leave?
No, you're
Come
fine.
back.
No, what's crazy is like those parts are bad enough, right? But when he was down with his other one of his other castles, he was defending against the Turks, right? So he was trying to protect the southern border of his town, of his country, and he was going to get overrun. And so what he ended up doing is he ended up impaling 20,000 people
That is ridiculous.
and left them, and then he fled his castle.
That is ridiculous. That's
Absolutely
so many
ridiculous.
people. Why? Did you just not like that many people, or what was the purpose?
The purpose of doing it was to terrify the Turks, and it worked.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the Turks came up, they saw 20,000 bodies. It was basically a forest of the dead. Mm-hmm. And then they left.
Ugh.
So, like, just absolutely atrocious. There's actually a picture of him, and he's sitting at a table eating dinner, and
it's a drawing.
it's a drawing, right?
Yeah.
And then next to him is the forest of the impaled
as he's eating.
as
his
he's eating
meal.
his dinner.
Couldn't do it.
No.
So there was lots of like rumors that he was a cannibal and he would eat the
Yeah, but they said that was false.
right. Mm-hmm. So he wasn't that type of person.
Okay, well,
I don't know. Maybe
he was a
wasn't.
lot of things.
What if he tried it once?
Never know.
You never. Well, that's true. I mean, he's not alive to tell us today, right?
No.
So, but those were those other castles, and so that's where like you get this interesting piece because you get Vlad, who's the personification of Dracula for these for the story, and a castle that he visited.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like taking two pieces of history and putting it into one story.
Yeah.
So, but that brings us up to the 1600s, roughly. 1459. Vlad actually had the city suburbs burned and murdered hundreds of Saxons, provoking the Saxon community to seek revenge. And that is actually how he ended up eventually potentially meeting his demise. He actually went to battle, and he died in battle. But
They don't know whether he died in battle or was actually murdered.
right,
So first he sacked the Saxons, and then the Saxons sacked him.
yeah, exactly.
Just goes to show, be nice to people.
Yeah.
Right. Don't put people on sticks, and they
Don't
won't kill you.
Don't poke people.
Didn't he
He poked a lot of bears. And
cut
finally
off
one
a
got
lot of
him.
noses too?
Oh,
Didn't he like cut off I don't know how many of the noses and he sent them to somebody?
it was in the thousands.
Yeah.
He actually sent it to the leaders of the Turks
Yeah.
as a way of like discouraging them from attacking.
Yep.
So he was really into the psychological warfare.
Was that
of
like?
things.
Is that why when you go to like hotels they ask how many noses? Have you ever heard that term?
No,
How many people are staying? It's like, well, we got these. It's like, how many noses?
Yeah. It's like this room sleeps 8 people, and every nose in that room counts, even if they're an infant.
but what if they
Yeah.
don't have a nose?
I don't know.
What if you have no nose?
Nobody
Like Voldemort.
knows.
Like, yeah, Voldemort doesn't have a nose. Or what about the man without a face?
He has a face.
The
He has
invisible
a
man.
nose. It's just doesn't look like yours.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know, but it just goes to don't be annoying.
Treat others.
I think he probably just got rid of all the annoying people.
Yeah.
What if they were all the diseased people and they were just like it was like actually like saving his country from these people who were ultimately just, I don't know.
But why would
maybe
you
it was-
take their nose as a
Maybe
trophy?
it was humane. I don't know. I'm just trying to be the Dracula's advocate.
Yeah. That's a tough one for that man.
I'm sure his mom still loved him.
Yeah.
He probably impaled her when she made him take a nap.
And you're gone, Mom. So in 1651, the Saxons actually purchased the right to use the castle for 10 years for 1,000 florins. And so the king actually accepted the purchase because he didn't have any money. He was broke because of the war efforts. And so he's like, yep, you can borrow it, use it for 10 years on a lease. And so then in 1691, the castle's lease was extended several times. And after the Ottoman conquest of the Hungarian kingdom in 1541, Brasov managed on April 1651 to sell the castle to George II. And Transylvania became a part of the Habsburg Empire in 1687. Although Transylvania became part of the Habsburg Empire since 1687, the promises offered by the princes of Transylvania, including the 1651 sale of the castle, were reconfirmed by Leopold Diploma.
So just to backtrack, how many florin did you say?
1,000.
1,000. So Terry, she's my wife. She Googled what a florin was just to see if, it's a coin that's worth about 2 shillings. Know what it's a shilling worth? I have no idea, but I've heard of it.
That's not a lot of money.
No, it sounds like it was like
So he sold it for 2,000 shillings, so 20 pounds?
it's like a scriptural story about like a mess of pottage or something. Just
A shilling
it's
is like a fraction of a pound.
How
Okay,
bad do
so-
you have to be financially that you're like, I'll sell you this kingdom, or I'll sell you this $20. What do you got?
Is
20
that
bucks.
150 euro?
That's a 1.5 euro, which is
1.5 euro.
For a shilling?
That's what a florin would be worth today. Would be 1.5.
Oh, so
Euro.
it's actually worth more than a euro.
Yeah.
yeah. So but a euro is about what, 150, worth $1.50.
Yeah,
Depends on the exchange rate. So I mean, still we're talking about a relatively small amount of money.
about $3,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But back then, though,
That's that's a fair amount of money. But you're talking about
This is like kingdom though, right? This is like a whole.
but he just rented out the castle,
So just the castle.
just the castle, not the kingdom itself. But still, that's like saying, hey, borrow this castle. But maybe if you're kind of broke,
Well, and that's something that was very common. Royals all throughout history usually broke. That's why they had to tax all their people, and why they had to do all these campaigns and these wars, just to try to get loot because they couldn't afford it.
yeah, gotta replenish everything.
You mean I'd have to work? No, let's just go sack the other country
And by sacking,
and take their $20.
yeah, and force my people to go sack them, so I don't have to pay them anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so then in 1723, so we're actually moving up in years. The renovation was completed on the north tower of the castle. The castle was damaged over time, often by sieges and otherwise by common negligence or even by forces of nature. For example, in 1593, there was an explosion on the powder mill, and in 1617, a severe storm destroyed the roofs. So the castle was also underwent reconstruction during the reign of Gabriel Bethlen, when the gates tower, the round tower, and the dungeon were all renovated. So
Renovating dungeons is important.
Does that say? That doesn't say dungeon.
dungeon. That says dungeon.
DONJON.
Dungeon.
You said dungeon.
Don John.
Don John.
Don
That was
John,
the Spanish conquistador.
Don Johnson.
Don John.
Interesting.
That was the guy they hired to renovate the dungeons.
Don John.
Don John.
And
I
then
want heated manacles for all the prisoners.
and then kind of so you're talking about a castle that's basically just been
Passed around.
passed around, but also neglected.
That's actually very common too. If you look at a lot of castles now, I mean, granted they're old,
and they're not much left.
but
Some of
yeah,
them.
but the ones that are still standing are always in such need of repair, just because. Well, it's not like they were built with the modern things. Actually, it's amazing that they still stand because they were built not with the modern stuff. Modern stuff doesn't stand very long,
yeah.
But yeah,
It's right because and I was even mentioning this to Jamie the other night. I was like, how amazing is it? Because today houses, if you leave a house, if you just abandon a house and don't turn the heat on or the water, and you just let it sit to the elements, in 5 years the place is destroyed.
We are seeing that over our back fence right now.
Right.
yes.
But
Sorry.
And that's only been since mid-August.
right.
Yeah.
But then you look at these castles, and this thing was built in the 1300s. It's 600 and some years old, and it still stands.
Yeah.
But it's
It's
also
gonna take
made out
some
of
upkeep.
stone.
That's true.
Or house-
That does help.
That helps
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah.
But I mean, what they didn't have? I mean, they could have used wood, but obviously
Well,
wood's
the
not
fir-
going to stand
well,
against
yeah,
a siege.
The first one was made out of wood.
Yeah. So that lasted.
Yeah.
So,
But no, the most moist. Most
Moist.
most castles you will find that are standing are usually doing fundraisers to try to get up enough funds to restore and to
Oh, yeah.
like
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
clan's castle right now is being leased by the city that it's in for a 50-year lease, and they're just trying just constant fundraisers to just save the castle.
well, and it makes sense though, because these places are big and they're huge and they're expensive, and in modern era, they're millions and tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars to buy, and then you got to try to keep it up. Mm-hmm. The funding, there's just not a lot of funding for it.
No, but all those old, anything made out of stone back then, has always, something's gone under some restoration.
Yeah.
Because when we were at the Roslyn Chapel, it was completely covered because they were trying to let it dry out because the stone had sucked up so much of the elements. That's the way it had changed colors.
They had a giant tent over top of it. It was kind of
Oh,
cool.
wow.
Yeah, like a big pavilion.
There was
type thing.
scaffolding and there was a big, huge, metal structure over the top of it to try to protect it from the rain and the weather because it had soaked up so much already, and they were trying to let it dry out.
Jeez.
And the Roslyn Chapel is how old?
I have no idea.
1500s at least. I mean, I know.
Okay, so you're still 500 years old.
1400s even. Yeah.
So
Probably
you're
1400s.
500 plus years old. Yeah, and it's amazing.
And it still stands.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I think, and that's what's crazy to think is you go to Europe, from all over Europe. There's castles, there's buildings, there's cathedrals, there's things that were built in the 1200s, 1300s that still stand today, and you can see them, and it's just this is amazing.
That's what, just a sidetrack. So we're going through. Terry and I were LDS, and in Utah, you see Mormon churches, LDS churches, and they're this typical cookie cutter. You can tell them a mile away when you see one, right? We're in Edinburgh, Scotland, and there's all these fantastic old cathedrals that have been there for
Amazing.
hundreds of years, and
cathedrals.
just beautiful artwork and
Well,
stuff.
just even Roslyn Chapel.
Even
Yeah.
and then
right
you're
there.
you're driving, you're like old cathedral. It's like, oh look,
There's a Mormon church.
1970s circa Mormon church right there, red brick, and
Same color brick and carpet is back in Utah.
Wow.
it's just I don't know. Sorry, I digress.
So, in 1836, I would call this as a catastrophe hitting Bron Castle. They lost their military and their commercial importance because the border between Transylvania and Wallachia was moved to the mountains, and so it was moved further south. And because of that, Bron ceased to be a border and a customs point into Austria-Hungary, and so the castle continued. But the castle continued its administrative seat. But because it's no longer a border stop, because it no longer has that importance, you start. It's why is it even here?
They're not getting the foot traffic they used to get.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, that was back in 1836. So, 118 years ago. Mm-hmm. at least what I consider modern era. Like the U.S. was around in 1836.
U.S. existed by then.
Yeah. And then between 1883 and 1886, the imperial authorities agreed, at the assistance of the Brasov inhabitants, to repair damages made to the castle during the Revolution of 1848 and during the Russo-Turkish War of 1877. The extensive restoration work was carried out. And then in 1888, the city administration of Brasov transferred the castle to the region's forestry. So for 30 years, the castle fell into decay. It was inhabited up to 1918 by the foresters, woodsmen, and forest inspectors coming to Brasov. So they just basically gave it to people who just didn't care.
Yeah.
But it gets a good facelift from here, and some much more responsible inhabitants,
Absolutely.
or snobby inhabitants. I don't know. Royalty.
Yes. Go for it.
So it was actually occupied by Hungary through a lot of that time too, and with the 1920 Treaty of Trianon, I'm saying it wrong, I'm sure, but Hungary lost Transylvania, and the castle became the royal residence within the Kingdom of Romania, after being given to the royal house by the Saxons of the Kronstadt Brasov. So, but these people who owned it, these woodsman people, these poor people, said, "Here, you can take this place that's probably reeks and is really dilapidated, and you can make it your own personal palace." They had no more use for it, no interest in financing all the damage and everything, and so it became the favorite home and retreat of Marie of Romania.
Who was actually British, by the way.
Well, the name like Marie, doesn't sound Romanian.
No.
But she ordered its extensive renovation, conducted by a Czech architect. And the castle was inherited by her daughter, Princess Ileana, who ran the hospital there in World War II, was later seized by the communist regime with the expulsion of the royal family in 1948. Again, it just keeps trading hands, right?
It does. But Marie was she was beloved by everybody around.
Well, of course.
She was super popular. She was also a nurse. And that's what kind of endeared her to the population.
It's weird to see a royal that the people actually liked. I don't think that happens very often.
Yeah,
But the fact that she's turning her home, right, her castle, into a hospital during World War II.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. And it was. She named it the Hospital of the Queen's Heart.
That's so tender.
Yeah, so tender. And it served it served for the treatment of the wounded. After the Red Cross hospital was bombed by Americans.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Go America.
Yes.
Dirty American.
Yeah, that's bad. But the hospital continued to treat people wounded and maimed in the war.
It's World War II. It's all bad.
Yeah, it was all bad. It's actually interesting to see something from the other side, right?
From their viewpoint?
From their viewpoint. Right, because so often, you only look at it or any kind of type of conflict from your country's point of view, and so it's interesting to see that. Unfortunately, in this incident,
but we don't know why it was bombed. Maybe they actually had Nazis in there. I don't know,
or it's just accidental.
I don't know.
So the Princess Ileana herself cared for patients as a nurse and even operated in the hospital. She continued to work with great efforts until January of 1948.
And then the Russians kicked him out. So it was seized by a communist regime, and the royal family was kicked out in 48. The next thing that comes up on my notes is 2005.
Oh, I got 1956.
Hey, you go first.
So Bron Castle was transformed by the communist authorities into a museum. It had 3 departments: the castle, which contained pieces of royal heritage, the medieval customs, and ethnography.
Like in Bailey?
Ethnography.
Like medieval customs, like impaling.
Yes, like impaling.
Ooh,
The rack and all that fun
the
stuff.
impaling room.
And include traditional houses in the park near the castle. So in 1990, getting into our lifetime now.
I remember 1990.
So do I. A couple of years ago now. Princess Ileana.
Terry doesn't remember 1990.
I just want to forget it.
We all want to forget 1990. The Princess Ileana, who since 1961 lived in a convent and was ordained as Mother Alexandria, visited Bron Castle and witnessed the damaged buildings and loss of some of the interwar construction. She died shortly after in 1991 and was buried in an Orthodox monastery of Transfiguration, Elwood City, Pennsylvania, which she founded and which she was the abbess. In her grave was placed a small box containing earth from the foot of Bron Castle, collected when she was exiled. So, and then in 1993, the castle restoration begins. The castle restoration works, which had started in 1987, were finished. So finally it was finished being restored, and it was reopened as a museum. And so it's what you see today, essentially.
Yep. Since June 1st, 2009, it's been opened up to the public as a private museum.
Yep. And recently, they actually had a contest to where you could, for two people, you could actually win a night stay in the in the museum.
What? I didn't know of this.
And your bed was a coffin.
Okay, I'm good.
It was a velvet-lined coffin.
Yeah.
That was back in like 2016.
Sickos.
That's a bit much.
It's a hard no.
Yeah.
Hard no.
I was in until the coffin part.
Right? I gotta stretch out. I gotta stretch out just a little bit. Like sleep in in a casket.
I
good.
get claustrophobic.
Yeah, that would just be not fun.
I think they need to do the whole string thing like they did in the Britons. When you bury them and they have the string that goes down in the coffin.
So you can pull
ring the bell.
Ring the bell.
Ring the bell and say, "It's too tight. Let me out."
Didn't they used to put like those iron cages over the graves too?
They still do in Transylvania, actually.
Do they?
They do. And that was to prevent the vampires from rising from the grave and getting out.
Yeah.
They would also...
To do wait, what was it?
So they put these iron cages over the graves.
Actually, no.
No?
So I learned about this in another show I did once. Maybe they did do it for vampires.
They did it for vampires in Transylvania.
In England and in Scotland, there was so many instances of
Grave robbery.
grave robbery and
Yeah.
body snatching. And so the wealthier people would put those big cages around it and so that you couldn't dig and get into their loved ones.
Right.
What was that?
Gizmo knocked something off the back.
Okay.
Oh.
It's a cat.
They also would bury people face down.
Yes.
So the thought is if you bury them face down when they came around, right, they would just go forward, right? So their spirit would go forward, which would then take them straight to hell.
I'll be darned.
Yeah.
I've never heard that one.
Didn't Josh Gates do an episode about Transylvania?
He did.
He went over there and remember there was like a partially open
grave.
and, and when he peeked in it, a cat jumped
Yes.
out.
Yes. Yeah. They did that. And then in Transylvania, they were finding old skeletons, right, with their mouths stuffed full of garlic
Yes.
or a brick.
Stone. They'd stick a stone in their
Right.
mouth. Yep.
Didn't understand the stone
The
part.
stone was to weigh him down.
Oh, so they wouldn't
It
get out.
was a weight. Yeah.
Right. And then they've also found them with spikes and
Yeah.
impalements and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
I want to
Yeah.
be buried with a gummy bear in my mouth. So that when I wake up and I'm like,
No, one of those 5-pound gummy bears.
no, like
One of those giant gummy
like maybe a
bears.
Swedish fish. It's kind of those warm things to wake up just like, oh.
That's good.
Rather than when you wake up and you have like that chalky
Yeah.
Okay, well, even earlier this year in May, Castle brand Dracula's Castle was offering free COVID-19 vaccinations for anyone who was brave enough to visit.
Wow.
I would have went just to go.
But here's
They
the
were administered
here's
by,
the kicker of
by
it though.
teeth.
Is like we would have gotten out of the country, but we wouldn't have been able to get
Get back in.
So yes, they were offering free COVID vaccinations there. In fact, if you go visit the castle today, it costs €9 to get in, just to do the tour, and it's just a self-walking tour. But if you want to do like the tunnel, or if you want to see like the medieval torture instruments, it's €2 extra for the medieval torture instruments and €4 extra to do the tunnel.
So we're talking €15.
€15 to do everything.
$20, man.
Yeah,
$20.
I'm down. Like
I'm in.
I'm totally
But
in.
what
It
does
also
it cost
says-
to get there?
It's free
Little bit.
for disabled and or institutionalized guests. I don't know what they're considering institutionalized.
If you're institutionalized, why are you allowed
you
to
out?
just go tour castles?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know.
This is free reduced admission, free access for disabled and or institutionalized guests, free access for children under 7 years old.
Yep.
I'll be your institutionalized guest. Like, just put me on the little harness and a leash and just say he's special. He's half price.
But there is, so the interesting thing is like trying to find ghosts, like hauntings of a castle, right?
Oh, there's not many. It's
There's-
hard.
There's one.
Well, the thing is for as big of a castle as this is, have you ever seen it on Ghost Adventures? No.
Ghost Hunters International.
Ghost Hunters International did Transylvania's castle.
They did Braun.
They did. Did they do Braun?
They did Braun. Season 1, episode
Not Transylvania,
17.
Can you
Frankenstein.
imagine, though, the Ghost Adventures people there?
But
Like,
honestly,
could this fly buzzing around my head
You
be the
don't-
ghost of Vlad Dracula?
this
Impaler.
isn't a common castle that you see a lot of ghost investigations happening at.
No, you don't. There's the one from Ghost. Yeah, so Ghost Hunters International did it. And I think the YouTuber Exploring with Josh went there.
He went there, but I don't know that they investigated or just like went on the
Maybe they
tour.
just don't allow it. Because, I mean, every
I-
place is haunted. You know there's stuff there.
Oh, there is.
for sure.
Hands down. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and that's the question, right? And it might be just one of those things that you have to ask the right questions and talk to the right people, and then have some like Discovery Channel money. But so the one ghost that I found, it obviously is the most famous ghost, is that of royalty. So in 1920, we talked about Queen Marie moving into the castle. It's her ghost that has actually been seen in the castle. So she ended up passing away in 1938 of cirrhosis. And since her death, people have seen her walking in the castle or the surrounding gardens.
Didn't they put her heart in a box?
Well, that's a lovely thought.
That yes,
Queen Marie's
yes,
heart.
they did. Yep,
Yeah.
they put it in a box.
and it still beats.
And where's the box?
It's in its sarcophagus to Bron.
yeah, it's in the
So
castle.
let's see.
They
It's
buried it in
placed
the
into the
floor.
crypt chapel carved into the rock across the valley from the castle.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's across from the
it's across
castle.
from the castle.
Yeah.
The heart, her
It
heart.
sounds like a story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It beats under the floor.
And then other people claim that they have seen Vlad in the castle. But the locals think it's very unlikely that he's there because he very rarely visited.
and he didn't even die there.
Well, yeah,
No.
it was a strategic mountain pass for when you're going back and forth. So I mean, just
And that's where he escaped. So, because he lived in the country to the south, essentially, and so he would, when he escaped his country to there, like he would just stop in, type of deal. So he wasn't like I mean, if his actual castle, his main castle, was standing today, that place has got to be like wickedly haunted.
Yeah,
Even the grounds that place is on I bet you, is just awful.
I bet.
yeah.
So, yeah, and that's the interesting thing about, I mean, that's the castle, right?
Yeah.
But there's some interesting things if you think about what Brom was talking about, or where his influences came from, right? Because we think that, it's because of the castle, it's because of Vlad that this book was written, right? but it's actually possible that it has nothing to do with Romania at all. So it actually could be Irish in influence. Mm-hmm. So
That makes a lot of sense.
because he was Irish, right?
If you know the Irish people.
So while many people believe that Dracula and vampires from Bram Stoker's book are based on Romanian folklore and legends, it is possible that it comes from his home country of Ireland. So his mother, Charlotte Blake, had lived through the famine years. I think that's the potato famine years, I think.
Yeah.
Yep.
The big potato famine.
And she told her son stories of skeletal people walking the countryside, like essentially like the living dead, as they were starving to death. And then during these famine years, there was also a particularly gruesome practice of cannibalism amongst the starving, where the blood was sucked from the dead and the nearly dead. And also, his original manuscript wasn't called Dracula.
What was it?
The Undead.
Yeah.
Wow.
I do remember hearing that.
And then,
So Dracula was a zombie?
well, he was undead.
He's undead.
He's undead.
Well,
Close enough, right?
I'm not dead, so that would make me undead.
No, it makes you live living.
Dead or undead?
The undead is the dead who still walks.
Oh, okay.
And so, there's a word for the Irish word for bad or tainted blood is actually pronounced Dracula in Irish.
Oh, interesting.
And so there's the expression is used to refer to feuds, usually referred to feuds between people and families. However, there is a legend associated to the Castle of Tainted Blood, which guards a lonely mountain pass in County Kerry in Southern Ireland. This castle is believed to be inhabited by blood-drinking, shape-shifting fairies.
I no longer want to go to Ireland.
You fight the fairies.
Fight the fairies!
Fight the fairies!
Fight the fairies! That's from Supernatural, y'all.
Yeah. But you can see how, like, all of those pieces closely resemble the story, the premise of Dracula.
Well, it's hard to find. Most things aren't new. I mean, the same stories get passed on and on and on. I mean, like, I'm sure Gilligan's Island was actually like some ancient story that just kind of got recycled and,
Yeah.
And
Well,
probably, I don't know.
and even Bram Stoker, when he wrote the book Dracula, it wasn't the first vampire story. There was one written many years before. And so there's the potential for that influence. H.G. Wells and other people had written books and stuff prior to him. And so those are all potential influences that he would have had in writing this book.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was thinking about how Robert Louis Stevenson wrote Half of Treasure Island while staying in our clan's castle.
That's awesome.
Yeah, when you go and visit our castle, there's a room that's completely all themed in pirates and everything because that was the room he was in when he started writing Treasure Island. It's cool.
Awesome.
That's so cool.
So, but Dracula had other castles, though, right? So we mentioned, we touched on these. You said that they're not standing. Let's talk about some of those.
Go for it,
I
Mike.
can take. Okay, so first of all, as Josh mentioned, there was Ponari Castle, which is known as the Ponari Citadel, and it's a ruined castle in Romania that's actually the home of Vlad the Impaler, and it's situated on top of a high mountain, and it's accessed by climbing 1,480 concrete stairs.
Jamie and I watched the documentary on this castle.
Yeah.
It is impressive.
Yeah.
It's impressive to be able to climb that. It's like, I'm not climbing those stairs.
Well, here's the part that's impressive.
Yeah, so to build that castle, they got all the material from the little valley below.
Yeah.
And yeah,
They had to trek it up.
all the way up.
that's where you would want to live, though, right? Because that's safe.
It
right?
was safe. It was never
you want
sacked.
to attack me? Come on.
But
Bring it. I'm going to bed if you guys make it halfway up in the middle of the night.
when he was fighting the Turks, right? He ended up fleeing to that castle.
Yeah.
But it ended up becoming a problem because the people there weren't used to. It was never designed for a long siege,
No.
and so essentially all they had to do was threaten a siege on the castle, and it was going to fall because there was no way you could manage to live 3, 4, 5 years without getting outstore supplies. It's literally on the top of a mountain.
Right. It's on top of the Mount I'm not even going to say it, but it sits on a mountain, yeah.
Yeah. And
There you go.
And it's absolutely breathtaking.
It was constructed around the beginning of the 13th century by the Wallachians. Did I say it right, Josh?
Yeah.
Wallachians, yay! And then it changed hands several times. Different people would be there, but eventually it was abandoned and left in ruins. And then in the 15th century, realizing the potential for a castle that's perched high on a steep precipice of rock, Vlad III, the Impaler, repaired and consolidated the structure by enslaving his enemies from the Danubian principalities of Wallachia and Moldavia, which is where Moldavite comes from.
And so when he took over the castle, it wasn't as big as it is today.
No.
So they actually expanded the castle to cover the entire hilltop.
Right. In fact, it says that it made it one of his main fortresses, rebuilding the former castle Arges on the left side of the river with the stones from the older. So he actually kind of moved these stones from this castle and then rebuilt another one just to kind of make a better one.
And they use what's called Byzantine construction.
Right.
Which essentially what that is you build a wall on both sides. You make a form of two walls and with a gap in between, and then you fill the gap with like rubble and sand and stuff. And so you basically make a 6-foot thick wall like that. And because of the way it was constructed, that castle is actually in an earthquake zone. Mm-hmm. And it actually has survived massive earthquakes.
It did. He died in 1476. It was abandoned again. 16th century was in ruins by the 17th century. But on January 13th of 1913, a landslide caused by an earthquake brought down parts of the castle, and they crashed all the way down into the river below. And then 2 further earthquakes in the 1940s and 1977 caused further damage. And they tried to repair a little bit, things that are still there, but, it's pretty much just been, you can't save it. They couldn't save it.
No, but it still stands.
It still stands, and it's still kind of considered a museum, but, yeah.
No, it's not like a restored castle. I mean, it's walls and stuff, but it's not, it's not like it was. But it's still a beautiful building. I would love to go there.
Now, there is another castle that I'm just looking at another legend. There was another. There's lots of legends about Panari Castle that have survived those centuries. But during the communist era in Romania, there were a lot of visitors who would spend the night inside this ruined structure. And there was a lady named Fatima Pahlavi and her husband Vincent Lee Hillier. They claimed that the night temperature was so much lower than usual inside that castle. And this is like even in July is when they were there. It was so much colder and it smelled of rotten flowers, although there were none. And he suffered from bizarre nightmares, inexplicably contracted keratosis, and he got the overpowering feeling that he was being watched, and actually got bitten without being physically assaulted. So, okay. So the other castle that is commonly associated is called the Castle Hunyadi, or also known as Castle Corbin Castle. And it's actually the castle that he was imprisoned in. When he was captured and imprisoned by the Hungarians, he was kept there. And John Hunyadi was the Hungary military leader. He was hungry John.
Hungry.
Yeah, that's where the Hungry Hippos game come from. It was named after Hungry John. Yeah, no.
Don't tell lies.
But what's funny is, so he spent time there in the prison there. Later, Vlad III entered a political alliance with John Hunyadi. And even though John was responsible for the execution of Vlad's dad, the one we said was the cool dad.
Yeah, and this was in Romania, too. It's not far from
Yeah, it's just over the border.
Yeah, it's just right over the border.
But because of these links, the Hundyadi Castle is sometimes mentioned as a source of inspiration for Castle Dracula in Brom Stoker's horror novel. So, but
It was also part of filming for The Nun.
but in fact, apparently Stoker never knew about Vlad's alliance with Hunyadi or about Hunyadi's castle. Instead, Stoker's own handwritten research notes confirm the novelist imagined Dracula's castle to be situated over in Transylvania, which is, near Moldavia, as we've established.
Yep.
Boom. But as Terry said, in 2018, the castle was used as the Carta Monastery in the horror movie The Nun.
The Nun.
I haven't seen that one either.
Nope.
Now, there's one other castle that's linked to this whole saga called Orava Castle, and that's the location where Nosferatu was filmed. It's situated on a high rock above the Orava River in the village of Ravsk. No, never mind, I'm not even. It's in Slovakia, kids. Okay, and it's considered to be one of the most beautiful castles in Slovakia, and lots of films from the 1922 Nosferatu were filmed there. And that's like pretty much the first vampire movie that was ever made. That was before he was cool and had the little the little point on his forehead.
It's a
and
silent
hair.
film, too.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's black and white.
It's black and white, silent, and that's part of the reason why it's so creepy, and it's had such a standing with people.
Yeah, and that Dracula was, if I remember correctly, was bald and kind of like gnarly looking.
Yeah.
Pointy ears.
Yeah.
Really pointy nose.
What vampires really look like.
Right. Instead of the suave, debonair, sexy type,
Yeah.
like Edward.
I don't think so. But okay.
Whatever. We're all about Team Emmett in our house.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love Emmett. so
Forget
much.
Team Jacob. Forget Team Edward. It's all about Team Emmett. So, all right. Well, anyway, we've gone on very long, and we've probably fascinated you all to death with the story of Dracula's castle. But anyway, we appreciate you listening.
Absolutely.
You can find us we're on social media. You can find us on Facebook at Cold Spot Paranormal Research.
Yeah.
We also have the Paranormal Peeps podcast page there. You can find us there. On Instagram, Terry.
Cold spot _paranormal _research.
Right. And then you can find, I'm the one that runs the MySpace page. It's just called Cold Spot.
Because, like, all of MySpace is available.
Yeah.
Everybody has one.
Yes. Does that even exist anymore?
I'm sure it's around.
We aren't on MySpace. I was lying, kids. Trick or treat, you got tricked. Woo-hoo. All right.
But I'd love to give a shout out to Broken Wings Paranormal. They invited us last week to the Ritz Theater investigation, and a couple of us went out there and had a good time with them. They actually have a video up on YouTube of the investigation, so you can see us kind of investigating and getting interviewed and having a good time.
What's their? Do you know what their YouTube page is?
Yeah, Broken Wings Paranormal.
Broken
Yeah.
Wings
Go
Paranormal
check
on
'em out.
YouTube.
Yep, check them out.
We'll have to share that video on our social media.
Absolutely.
Ritz Theater in Tooele, Utah.
Yep. And then also a shout out to Paranosis. They kind of gave us a behind the scenes look into the Anson Call House in Bountiful, Utah. That's a pretty cool place.
Pretty active.
Yeah, pretty active, and it's got a crazy history. So the building had a fire because the water heater basically exploded, and it's pretty neat. But it's a very important house for the city of Bountiful, since it's the founder's house. So, but a huge shout out and thank you for letting us come in there and take a look around.
Yeah, thank you.
And with that,
Stay ghosty, my peeps. Thank you for listening to the Paranormal Peeps podcast. You can find us on social media at Twitter at CPR Paranormal, on Facebook at Paranormal Peeps Podcast and Cold Spot Paranormal Research. And you can find us on Instagram at coldspot_paranormal_research.